Joe Rogan is a 6-time MMA Personality of the Year winner and has been featured in 3 EA Sports video games. He went from growing up with an abusive father and being terrified of being called a loser as a child to having one of the most popular podcasts and YouTube channels on the planet. Need motivation?
Watch a top 10 with Believe Nation.
Top 10, I got a top 10. Got my motivation high for my top 10. Gotta learn from the wise women and men. All my life, like 9 and 9. For my top 10, top 10, 9 and 9. This one's for my top 10.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and I make these videos because you are probably the most ambitious person in your circle, but you know you're capable of more. And you get that push by surrounding yourself with the best. So today, let's learn from one of the best, Joe Rogan, and my take on his top 10 rules of success. Enjoy. Okay, let's kick it off with rule number 1. Remap your consciousness.
I think most of us are operating on momentum, and I think you learn things as a child, and those become, you know, whatever your personality is, the way, whatever thought process you sort of have carved into your mind, like the grooves and patterns that you normally find yourself thinking in. And I equate it to a lot to martial arts training. Like I used to teach martial arts for a living. One of the things that I found incredibly difficult was to reteach people. It was way easier to teach a person with no training than it was to reteach someone with poor training. So when someone has poor training, they have these paths carved in their movements and their thought process, and when they're in a situation, they fall back on those patterns, and it's extremely difficult to get people out of that and learn to do things correctly. But if you can teach them how to do things correctly from the beginning, then they naturally, like, this is the stressful situation, here comes the problem, here's the issue, what's the technique, now you know it, and it's locked into your brain. You know the right pathway, whether as like, don't go to the technique you've been using all your life, now use a new technique, and remember to manage that situation under pressure. I think that's how most of us are handling our lives. We're handling our lives with poor techniques and poor management skills, and these paths that are carved in, that are infantile, and that are essentially like the remnants and the echoes of when you were a teenager, or even younger than that, and then maybe your parents and the learned behavior that you see watching them, and maybe they weren't so good at managing life either, but these patterns are carved into your brain, and you find comfort in them because you know where they're going, and so you slide right into them. And then as an adult, you start trying to remap your consciousness and remap those patterns. And in doing that, it's very difficult to sort of rethink how you think.
Rule number 2, understand who you are.
Doing all these psychedelic, cosmonautic explorations of the psyche, are you not encountering aspects of yourself that are undeveloped, unaddressed?
There's always going to be unaddressed and undeveloped aspects of yourself, but I'm very, very, very different to who I was when I was a young boy. I mean, I'm not 100% self-actualized. I don't think anybody is. But I'm just a totally different human being. I remember it, but I remember it with humor. Like, I remember it and I laugh. I'm like, wow, so silly. I was so weird back then. And, you know, with life experience and developing confidence and understanding of who you are and why you had those feelings and why you were insecure and why you had so much self-doubt, martial arts helped me with that tremendously, because it was the first thing that I ever did where I didn't feel like a loser. It's like the first thing that I ever did where people like respected me and they liked me for it. You know, I'm like, wow, this is like it was a feeling that I was completely unused to in the 14 previous years of my life. All of a sudden there was this feeling that I was unusual. I was unique. I was special.
Wow.
You know, I was appreciated.
You were good at it quick, were you?
Yeah, I had a natural inclination towards it.
Oh, amazing.
And I was obsessed with it. So I was obsessed with it, so I was training every day, all day long. And then my instructor recognized it really early on, so he allowed me to train there for free, and I would teach classes. And teaching classes helped me a lot as well, because when you're teaching, you're breaking down techniques, and when you're showing someone how to do it, you're really cementing those pathways in your own mind.
Rule number 3, eliminate jealousy.
When was the last thing that you go, no, gotta, like you maybe gave it a little too much bandwidth? Do you still struggle with those things?
No, I don't, and not really anymore, but it's been a gradual process. Like, remember the first...
You had to have been a jealous dude in stand-up. Like, when you first started out, you had to have hated the guy that was getting ahead. Like, right? I don't know any male comic.
I definitely was in the beginning.
Yeah. And how, what happened to that? You get successful and it didn't happen? I feel like
before I was successful, I realized it was stupid. Long before. Because when I was like an amateur, I would see guys that were killing and I'd be like, him, like, why is he doing good? Like, that guy sucks and this guy sucks, and you know, how come he got this and he got that? And then I remember thinking, like, this is a gigantic waste of time. And I got into comedy because I'm a fan of comedy, and my concentrating on people that suck or being jealous about people that are doing well does me zero good. But instead, if someone does well, I can be inspired and I can get fired up by it. I mean, I figured this out in my early 20s. I was like, okay, this is I have a poor way of looking at it, because it's a martial arts thing. Because in martial arts, like, you can't be jealous of someone else's ability. You have to realize you might have to fight them someday. So by realizing that they're really good, you're forced to be objective about it. And you have to go to work. Like, you have to go, that guy's better than me. I got to get better. And you have to go to work.
Right.
There's no positive benefit in underestimating someone.
Rule number 4, embrace the no shortcuts mentality.
You self-help by people who've done it, and you learn what they did, and you realize there's no shortcuts.
Right.
And then you learn to embrace that no shortcut mentality and enjoy the suffering and the grind of it. And what we talked about earlier, there's no finish line. It doesn't exist.
Also, if you want to have more self-belief and self-confidence, I've designed a special free program to help you get it, where I send you a video every day for 254 days. The research says it can take up to 254 days for you to build a new habit, and this program will help you get it. Once again, it's free, and the link to join is in the description below.
Do what you want to do. Do what the is it that you really want to do? Because if someone else is doing it, you can do it. It's good to treat other people the way you would like to be treated yourself. It's like a golden rule, and there's a reason for it. And that reason is that we're connected.
Rule number 5, understand the significance of doubt.
Alcohol is a great social lubricant, right? It's great for releasing inhibitions and letting people communicate with each other more freely and have fun. But it removes doubt. And that's not good.
Right.
I think doubt is critical.
Yeah.
Like, doubt is one of the pieces of the great puzzle, right? The great puzzle has many ingredients, and one of those ingredients is doubt. And doubt is important. You should look at anything you're about to contemplate and go, let me think about this. Let me think what could go wrong. When you get a couple of drinks, let's do it.
Let's go.
Woo! And then next thing you know, you're on an internet meme.
Rule number 6, be comfortable with uncomfortable situations.
People in general, and I think it's one of the reasons why people fall into panic, is because they don't have enough experience with stressful situations to the point where they could just relax and just let it happen. And that's one of the things one of the reasons why I think martial arts training is very good for people. Not just for the self-defense aspect of it, but for the aspect of just dealing with stressful situations on a regular basis to the point where you're very comfortable with them. And then you realize that the consequences of this it's not really as bad as you think it is. Like, most people are terrified of physical confrontation. But when you have physical confrontation on a regular basis, especially through my favorite, which is jiu-jitsu training, because there's no striking, so you don't get hit in the head. You're not worried about brain damage or any of that stuff. It's just basically grappling. But that through the continual process of testing yourself and stress and regular life stresses sort of become diminished. And I think that even running, like exercise, yoga, I think in particular, all these things that are difficult, when you do these difficult things, you're stressing your mind, or I should say, don't even stressing your mind, exercising your mind and exercising your body's ability to manage intense situations. Like, yoga poses are very intense, especially hot yoga. It's hard. It's very difficult. It's very testing. And in doing so, you lessen the stress of regular life.
Rule number 7, find your motivation.
it's just impossible to change people's ways. They have to want to change. They have to be motivated. They have to. It's so hard to change people. It's like if you've ever had a friend that's been into drugs and it's been all fucked up and you can't get them to quit, or an alcoholic. It is almost impossible to talk someone into changing. They have to have some motivation that's internal.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with eating good. The best example you could set is by living your life in a healthy way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, just live it.
That's one of the best things about the internet. You get to see all these people that are doing things in a healthy way and doing things that are exciting and inspirational, and then it makes you want to do stuff that's good. It makes you want to take care of your body, and makes you really want to concentrate on your mind and meditate and just really get everything in order.
Rule number 8, stay hungry.
When successful people have kids, what made them successful is dry. I grew up poor too. We were on welfare and food stamps, the whole deal when I was a little kid. And that always stuck in my head, this thought, like, we might not have enough food. Like, I remember thinking that when I was little, like, what if we don't have any food? What if we run out of food? My kids will never feel that. They don't understand what that is. And everybody that I've ever met that's interesting came from some crazy struggle when they were young.
Yeah.
And that's the thing of you and I and most people that are doing well in life, you're raising your kids in a completely different way than literally what brought you to the dance in the first place. The hunger of not being one of those people that's left behind is what makes you successful in the first place.
Rule number 9, don't chase money.
I got to see firsthand both sides of money. You know, I went from living in a basement with 5 other people and living on welfare to living with my father in a mansion. And it's like, oh, yeah, all this money and all this stuff is just emptiness and meaningless, and it doesn't necessarily equate to real happiness.
No, it
and like,
doesn't.
why are we all chasing this so hard? And I got to see that firsthand very, very early on. I was like, I don't want this at all.
Well, it's a trick. It's like the same reason why people love to play video games, because they're difficult. But there's no real reward unless you're a professional video game player and you make a living doing it.
Nowadays,
there's no real reward. You just get better at it and you get some sort of a sense of satisfaction. And I mean, there's something to be gained from it. In fact, some video games they've actually shown can increase your cognitive performance and other things, similar to the way chess does.
Right.
But the trap is that they're hard to do. So when we see things that are difficult, human beings are sort of puzzle and problem-solving oriented. We see puzzles, we want to solve them. We see mysteries, we want to find out. That's why everybody's into like Bigfoot and UFOs and because it's a mystery.
Yeah.
Oh, what is it? What do you think it is? Like, we have a natural inclination to try to solve things like that.
Yeah.
And we think that because in life, look, if you try to solve where the food is, you survive. That's what made us alive. That's why our DNA has been passed down for all these hundreds of thousands of years. Because our ancestors figured out where the food is. You know, they figured out how to drill a hole in the ice and fish. They figured out how to survive.
Yeah.
And this is why things that are difficult to do are attractive to us. But we have to be able to differentiate between things that are difficult and meaningful and things that are difficult and bullshit.
Yeah.
You know Brian Callen? My friend Brian Callen said something to me once when we were really young, and it was the perfect thing. We're both in our 20s. And he said, all you want is enough money so you don't have to worry about what something costs when you go to a restaurant.
Yeah.
He's like, everything else is bullshit. I was like, you're right.
Yeah,
like that feeling of being able to have enough money to just get a nice meal at a restaurant and not sweat it.
Yeah.
Like, everything else is gravy.
And rule number 10, the last one before a very special bonus clip, is embrace love.
You can have a $100 million house and a private jet. And if you don't have love, you don't have anything. You're missing the key ingredient.
That's right.
You know, it's like having cement but not having water.
That's right.
You know,
That's right.
You have the mix, but you don't have the water.
Yeah.
You have nothing. You ain't building any house.
Yeah, no,
You know?
and you know, and unfortunately, there's so much lack of love in the world for other people and other, you know.
And there's so many people that want to, instead of propagate love, they want to propagate anger and they want to propagate hate. And it's so easy to do. And so many people are dissatisfied by their own existence that they want to do that. But they don't understand that by doing that, you are perpetuating this whole terrible cycle that you've been caught up in yourself. If you go out there hating on everybody and being to everybody and throwing all this anger out there in the world, that you are literally poisoning yourself. There's a wonderful quote about jealousy that I think also applies to hate, is that it's one of the rare things that is ineffective on the person who's your target, but works on you instead. Like if you're jealous, if there's a person out there like, oh, I wish I was living her life, and you're angry at her, like it's not hurting her. It doesn't even affect her.
No, that's
but
like pissing in the wind.
You feel the poison. It's poison that works on you.
You piss in the wind, that piss is going to come right back on you.
Yeah, it's just hard for people to understand that there's techniques and there's strategies and there's philosophies that can help you steer through this world with a happier life. And that is a big part of it. A big part of it is embracing love and friendship and camaraderie and being nice to people.
Now I've got a really special bonus clip that I think you're going to enjoy. But before that, it's time for the question of the day. I want to know, what was your single biggest takeaway from this video, and how are you going to take action on it this week? When you schedule in what day, what time, and what place you're going to take action, you have a 91% chance of actually following through versus just a 35% chance if you just got motivated but never created a specific plan. And when you share your plan publicly and have some accountability, you increase your chances even further of actually following through. So I want to know your single biggest takeaway and your plan of action this week in the comments so I can celebrate you.
John Danaher wrote some really fascinating piece on his Instagram about routine, about how important it is if you're a great athlete. He said, you find me a great athlete, I'll find you someone whose life is governed by routine. And that this is the way to check progress, and this is the way to constantly be moving towards your goal. And I remember reading that, and I said to myself, this is something that I've always known, but never verbalized. I've never said it.
Yeah.
But it's something that I've always known. Like everybody who's really good. I remember I read a Sports Illustrated article a long time ago about who's that track and field guy who won the Olympics a bunch of times. His name was something Moses. I forget his name. See if you can find this guy's name. It was something, but he was like an elite track and field guy. And what's that?
Edwin Moses.
Edwin Moses. He was a beast and just super, super disciplined. And I remember he had like this routine where he had his notebook, and he would lay his notebook out and write down all of his different routines. And he had this like mat that he would lay down. He would do his stretching routines and all this stuff. And I remember thinking like, oh, this guy, this is his thing. He does this all the time. He just gets there, he locks in, and he does this. And this was many, many years ago. I might have even still been fighting when this was going on. So I remember thinking about it going, okay, like this is like what elite performers do when they're at the Olympics. You know, track and field is so boring. You're doing the same shit. You're just running. Like you have to have a mind that's made out of steel to be able to do that same stupid shit every day to try to get an extra 1/10 of a second here or an 1/8 of a second there. All that, right? But I remember thinking like it was at the same time horrifying to me that someone would ever want to do the same stupid shit over and over again until they won a gold medal, but at the same time massively impressive that this guy had this kind of iron will. There it is. Every time Edwin Moses placed his feet on the blocks from 1977 and 1987, he won. Moses, arguably the best hurdler ever, won 122 races, including 107 consecutive finals, and set world records in the 400-meter hurdles 4 times within that 10-year span. Journey to this untouchable level was marked by personal innovation and determination, proving that elite coaching and state-of-the-art facilities are not required for supreme athletic success. And there was, I believe it was Sports Illustrated that had an article about this guy, and I remember just seeing him, how motivated I was, seeing him stretching and working out and going over his routine. And I was thinking to myself, like, I would think about it every time I worked out, that like, what would Moses do? Like, how would Moses, like, I got to start writing shit down. I got to start really thinking about everything I do. And I got to start putting it together on a daily basis like he does.
If you want to change your life for free in the next 30 days, check out my training right here below. Or if you want 50 more rules from Joe Rogan, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll enjoy them. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.